and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View for a little ladies' tea. Tonight, we're joined by the Daily Caller's Reagan, Reese, as well as the former RNC national spokesperson, Elizabeth Pipko. Ladies, welcome to the show. There is so much to talk about right now. I just think that this Russia collusion hoax being shown for the true hoax it was is just top of mind for me right now. Donald Trump was right again. Let me remind everybody, and maybe you all remember this already, that Donald Trump said that Obama was spying on his campaign. He said that our campaign never colluded with Russia, that it was made up, that it was a hoax. I'll remind everyone as well that this all started with Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign. Don't forget that. It was in 2016, and apparently CIA director at the time, John Brennan, discovered that Hillary had approved the plan to falsely smear President Trump and insinuate that he colluded with Russia. You remember the Steele dossier? Remember that money for that came from the Clinton campaign? And we now have Brennan's handwritten notes recounting not one, but two meetings at the White House that included Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Clapper, Comey. They all knew that it was phony. But instead of coming out, Liz, and telling the American people that this was all fake and it was all phony, what happened? Anybody remember how it all played out? Yeah, that's right. We had to go for several years and get a deep dive into everything that happened. It cost our country somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million to come out on the other end of it, to know that, guess what? This had nothing to do with Donald Trump colluding with Russia. The only person who colluded with anyone was Hillary Clinton and her campaign. And I'll tell you what, Liz, the fact that Barack Obama was at least in on these meetings and at least knew a little bit about it, this is very interesting stuff. And now Tulsi Gabbard has sent all of this information over to the Department of Justice to see what they want to do with it. Wow. What do you think of all this, Liz?
You know, it's a lot, but it's also a little at the same time, probably because we've been through so much since then, right? Like when you think about the Russia collusion hoax, like it was so much at the time and so ridiculous and so painful even in the moment to think about. But I mean, knowing that he's had a mugshot since then and every other fake indictment that's been thrown his way and the 2020 election and everything else he's gone through, you kind of forget about it. But it takes me back to it feels like yesterday that I was on that campaign in 2016 and I remember these accusations and I remember thinking, where on earth would we have figured out how to collude with anyone? We were just a bunch of 20-something-year-old rebels who just loved Donald Trump and believed in this guy and had no idea how to, run a campaign, let alone win an election. The whole thing was ridiculous. Then again, it's fun to think back and realize that while they were making fun of us in the media and saying he had no chance of beating Hillary Clinton, they were concocting this plan at the same time because they were so fearful, not only of Donald Trump, but of his, 20-something-year-olds made up, I guess, campaign. I don't even know what you call it. It was a bunch of kids who believed in this man and loved this country and took down the Clinton machine. And it's amazing still to think about. But yeah, I can't believe that it happened. And also it's sad that we're getting this kind of news, more than 8 years later. No one's paying attention. No one cares. And no one's realizing that their favorite person, Barack Obama, actually colluded against the country in one of the worst ways possible because he was threatened not just by Donald Trump, but by the overwhelming support that he had for the American people that the Democrats still to this day have no clue how to go up against.
So Reagan, there's so much here for me. First of all, I'm curious what happens to people. Does this go to the level of treason? What do we call this whenever something like this happens? It's unprecedented. Let me just read you a little excerpt of what DNI Tulsi Gabbard said over the weekend. She said, the implications of this are frankly nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that were released on Friday detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama, if just weeks before he was due to leave office after President Trump had already been elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious, it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. Reagan, these people felt like they knew better than the American electorate. They thought that the American people made a mistake in electing Donald Trump to the White House in 2016. And so they said, well, we don't want this to be a success and a successful presidency. We don't care how bad it is for our country. Again, I just talked about the fact that the Mueller report, don't forget, that's what we had to do. We had to investigate all of this, cost tens of millions of taxpayer dollars to get to the bottom of the fact that, of course, no one colluded from our campaign. Donald Trump didn't collude with Russia. But this is about these people going out of their way to try and thwart President Trump and the will of the people, as far as I'm concerned. Their goal was to take him down. Their goal was to basically have a reason that people questioned it. And then I guess they were going to go in and impeach him and get him out of office. I don't know. This is serious, serious stuff. And I'm shocked that it's taken this long, quite frankly, for it to come out. But thanks to Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, it's serious stuff. It's a bombshell. It's absolutely unbelievable. And no one's talking about it. I mean, we're talking about it right now. We're talking about it at the Daily Caller. These right-leaning outlets are talking about it. But when I look at the mainstream media, and every morning I go to all the mainstream media and I read their coverage, because part of my job as a White House correspondent is to zig where these guys are zagging, is to figure out what they're obsessed with and cut through that and get to the truth. And there's little to no coverage of this memo. I read some headline on one of the websites coming in right before this interview that said what Tulsi Gabbard presented was very thin and that there was almost no evidence at all. And I think it's a complete shame that they're turning an eye to what Gabbard put forth. And I thought that was the whole point of learning that Joe Biden was not fit for office when he was in office, and reflecting on your coverage. And the media, made us believe that they were going to reflect on how they covered Joe Biden and how they covered Donald Trump and how they covered everything over the last several years, and really look inward. And this is a perfect example of why you should never trust the mainstream media, why you shouldn't trust the legacy media, and how the Trump administration is raising up these new media voices, because you can't trust them for the truth and to cover the administration accurately. And so that, to me, has been the biggest scandal of this whole thing, is that they're really just looking away. They don't want to cover it. Cover it obsessively, like you were covering the Epstein files for the last couple of weeks. Please. It drives me crazy.
There was so much that went against Donald Trump in the 2024 election. I mean, don't forget about the raid on Mar-a-Lago, unprecedented, never happened before. Don't forget about, Liz, the indictments he faced from Fani Willis, from Alvin Bragg. Of course, there was the Letitia James situation. Don't forget about 2 assassination attempts of Donald Trump. There were forces that were very clearly trying to keep Donald J. Trump out of the White House for a second term. I would go so far as to say that maybe when we get to the bottom of whatever the hell happened in the 2020 election, because quite frankly, Liz, we still don't know. I think that there were forces then that were pretty clearly trying to keep Donald Trump from a second term. And I would go on a limb and say that maybe this had to do with it. Maybe this whole situation, they were afraid he would get to it in the first term, but he was too distracted. He was learning on the fly. He had constant incoming from the media, constant incoming from the Democrats. Obviously, the midterm elections didn't go our way, and then they impeached him. And it was just like constant, like defense for President Trump. Despite all of it, he got so much accomplished during his first term in office. But I would say this has probably been in the back of a lot of people's minds, just lingering there. Like, wow, what if somebody finds out that we made up all of that evidence and we tried to frame Donald Trump to say that he colluded with Russia? I would say maybe that's part of the reason that so many of these people were worried about him getting back in that White House. Forget everything else. This is going to be a big problem for a lot of people, I believe. And I'm also looking at Adam Schiff. I keep bringing this guy up because I can't get enough of him, because he was the #1 person, Liz, who got out there in front of cameras to tell us all that he had the smoking gun. So let me ask Adam Schiff, where does he fall in line with all of this? Where was he getting his direction that there was a smoking gun, that he should go out there and amplify this and be the mouthpiece of this complete and total hoax, this incredible scandal? This stuff is way bigger, I think, than we even know right now. But what do you think of that, Liz? That's probably part of the reason they never wanted Donald Trump to end back up in the White House.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of probably goes with everything else that they did over the course of, 8 years of Barack Obama and everyone that came before him. I think the reason Donald Trump scared people so much is because he really was beholden to no one, right? He didn't have anyone that had been funding his fake political career year after year after year that he had to answer to. So they knew that if Donald Trump got into the White House, even apart from this phony Russia hoax, he would have so much material that he would be not afraid at all to share with the American people. Because I think before Donald Trump, it was kind of this elite group of presidents, Republicans and Democrats, who covered for each other. And all of a sudden, this guy comes out of nowhere, not scared of the establishment on either side, not scared of anyone who came before him, and ready to share the truth with the people. So I think it was this Russia collusion hoax, but it was also so many other things that happened before Donald Trump even ran that they knew was now going to be in the hands, literally, of the American people, because Donald Trump feared no one. He was running for no one but the people that were going to put him in that Oval Office, and that scared them. That really scared them. It still scares them. There's a reason people grill Donald Trump and those around him differently than everyone else. You mentioned Adam Schiff. If the mainstream media was fair or wanted to pretend they were fair, they would still be asking Adam Schiff today for that proof that he was talking about every single day in a different interview. But they don't. They don't care. They know it doesn't exist, and they know that they can get away with not asking him, and that's the problem.
Yeah, Adam Schiff was one of the people who got pardons, Reagan, from Joe Biden right there at the end. One of the auto pen pardons that Joe Biden signed, we'll put that in air quotes, at the very end, like in the 11th hour of his presidency. They got a lot of people in there. Don't forget, Adam Schiff was on the January 6th committee. And let's talk about that for a second as well. I would also argue that was a big tactic in terms of trying to keep Donald Trump from ever getting back in that White House. The amount of manufactured information from that J6 committee, all of them ought to be ashamed of themselves. The spectacle, the theatrics that they put on with that nonsense, I mean, over the top, more than anything I've ever seen. But you have, people like James Comer, who are now investigating this auto pen scandal, Reagan, and he's saying, Congressman Comer's saying, listen, if we figure out that Joe Biden really did not understand that he was signing any of these, if these were just kind of rogue aides who were going in with the auto pen and signing these pardons, we could potentially take this to a court, and a court could determine that those pardons do not stand. Those are null and void. Those don't count. Because you can't just kind of usurp the power of the president with an auto pen. That doesn't work. That's not how this country is designed to work. An auto pen, yeah, to sign, you're signing a letter to like the Girl Scouts from, Miami, Florida or whatever. Thanks so much for coming to visit the White House. No, not on important documents like this. And so I imagine Adam Schiff, Reagan, is probably one of the people, along with all those J6 pardons, Anthony Fauci, there are a lot of them you look at, and these people probably right now are freaking out as well.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that Joe Biden could have done for the Democrats was talk to the New York Times for the first time since becoming president. And he did. He spoke for 10 minutes, and it was unbelievable, this investigation. And two things really stood out to me about this interview. One was that a White House aide told the New York Times that it was very common for Joe Biden to sign off on a topic or a category in which they were going to pardon people, and then they would make little tweaks, add names, take away names, do things from there, and they didn't feel like they needed to check with Joe Biden on every single one, and then they would hand it off to the woman who would sign with the auto pen. And that, to me, is a major red flag. The other thing that's a major red flag to me is that there apparently was this system, the New York Times reports, where Joe Biden would give verbal permission to senior aides who are in on a meeting with them to use the auto pen. So there's no written record that Joe Biden knew what was going on. It was all by word of mouth. Those senior aides would then tell their assistants that Joe Biden gave us permission to use the auto pen. The assistants weren't in the room, so they're just taking the senior aides' words for it. They would then reword that in their wording and email it off to the woman who was manning the auto pen. And then from there, she would sign the pardons or the documents or whatever needed to be auto penned. And I'm so curious, when did they come up with this? How did they realize this was the process they needed to use? What was the specific reason for not having Joe Biden, type down or write in an email when you're in this meeting with him yes, I give you permission to use the auto pen. He's just verbally using it. And so to me, there's so many red flags, and there's so much that Republicans can use here to get to the bottom of this and to further exploit Democrats in the Biden White House. And I know the Associated Press wrote an article yesterday saying that Republicans keep talking about Joe Biden and that's a problem for them. And I absolutely don't think it's a problem for Republicans to keep talking about Joe Biden, because I think it's a major scandal that, remember, just a couple months ago was cool for Democrats, for Jake Tapper, for Alex Thompson to be talking about and wanting to expose. So this whole thing is a major problem that also deserves more coverage.
As a mom, I'm always looking for something that I can actually watch with my family. Something that's more than just noise in the background, because you guys all know what I'm talking about, right? Sketch really surprised me, and in the best sort of way. Sketch is the newest film from Angel Studios, and it does exactly that. It follows a young girl who loses her sketchbook in a mysterious pond, and from there, her drawings begin to come to life. But they're not just characters, they're her emotions, her struggles, and her imagination all tangled together. It's so imaginative, it's so creative, but it's also got heart, which we could all use more of. It reminds me of those movies that I loved growing up, the ones that made you feel something and left you smiling at the end. Remember those? Sketch opens up in theaters August 6th, and you can get 2 free tickets at angel.com/Lara. It's the kind of story that stays with you and sparks meaningful conversations with your kids long after the credits roll. Mike Lindell and MyPillow employees want to thank my listeners for all of your continued support. Mike has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life, and he didn't stop by creating the best pillow. He's also created the best bed sheets ever. Mike is offering the best deal on his Percale bed sheets. You can get a set for as low as $24.98. The MyPillow Percale sheets are breathable and have a cool, crisp feel. They have deep pockets to fit over any mattress, and they look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you will receive $100 in free digital gifts. Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code TRUMP to receive the MyPillow Percale sheets for as low as $24.98. Order now or call 800-624-3945 and use promo code TRUMP. It's like a bad game of telephone that they had going on at the White House, right? I mean, to hear you go through it like that, Reagan, that it's kind of wild that flies in the United States of America's White House. This is like a sacred space where you're supposed to do things that, can't get messed up. Everybody who's played the game of telephone knows it starts out as, one sentence, and by the time it gets to the end, it's a completely different sentence. So these people are just playing a bad game of telephone, and who knows what ended up at the end? Who knows how much of what originated actually made it to the final person who wrote it all out and signed the whole thing. But you know, the thing that you said that's interesting is that the Democrats say that maybe the Republicans are talking about Joe Biden too much. They may want to talk to Hunter, though, Liz, because Hunter had a lot to say. I don't know what the story is with this guy. I mean, in some ways I feel sorry for him. In other ways, I think that it's just outrageous. I don't know who told him to drop as many F-bombs as he did in some of these podcasts, but man, he really went hard. Andrew Callaghan is the guy's name, the YouTuber whose podcast he went on. He calls out George Clooney. He calls out James Carville. He calls out David Axelrod. He calls out, all of Obama's, he calls them junior speechwriters. They're the Pod Save America guys. And he's saying those people raked in millions of dollars. Anita Dunn, Jake Tapper. He just went he went ham on everybody, Liz. And he did not hold back. And he seems to, in my mind, be trying to, first of all, make excuses for his dad. And he says that, his dad's administration was so historic and they got so much done. Okay, Hunter, maybe, we no one believes that, first and foremost. But it kind of seems like he's positioning himself, Liz, as, I'm your option. I'm the guy who knows everything. I don't know. What's Hunter doing here? Is he going to make a political run? What did you make of this whole rant that he had? Because it was really something.
It was. I haven't thought about him running. I kind of hope he does. Based on where the party is now, he might be their best chance. I don't even know. They don't have a lot of options. But I mean, honestly, watching this, it was almost comical because I knew that it wasn't going to be reported on the way it should be. And considering how the legacy media is like salivating for any kind of cracks in Donald Trump's base, it's interesting that they didn't want to cover this, considering he's the son of, the president who left 6 months ago. He's the son of the guy who was vice president for Barack Obama for 8 years. I mean, he's literally ripping apart every single major Democrat, anyone that has any kind of voice left in the party, and they don't want to cover it, but that's your major crack. The fact is, no one is more fractured than the Democrat Party right now. I'm still waiting to see what comes out about Joe Biden and his historic presidency, but the fact is, it's going to keep coming out. We still have Karine Jean-Pierre's book and everything she wants to tell people. We still have these investigations going on. There's going to be more and more, and I think the more comes out, the worse it's going to look, not just for Joe Biden, obviously, but for the party. And I hope that Hunter Biden keeps talking. I hope he runs for office, and I hope he never disappears.
Reagan, I thought the timing of it was kind of weird. Like this all kind of broke on the day that they kicked Joe out of running for the presidency. Like the day they ushered him on out and, had a little cane and get off stage. We're done here with you. He came out then to kind of rant and rave about all of this. And then one of the things that I am still trying to piece together is he claims that the reason that Joe Biden's debate against Donald Trump was so bad was just historically terrible. Nothing has ever happened like that in terms of debates. Is it because Joe Biden was on Ambien? What's going? Do you believe that Joe Biden was on Ambien? And who would take an Ambien before you go out on stage to do probably the most important debate of your entire political career? I don't get that.
Well, I believe that Joe Biden was probably on something. I guess it makes some sense, but I think we've gotten a lot of answers on what was going on behind the scenes, maybe who was running the White House, but there's still so much to be discovered. I want to know, what was it like to wake up Joe Biden at 2 a.m. when there was some emergency that you needed to talk to him about? Were there guardrails somewhere in the White House? Did he need help walking and getting dressed behind the scenes? Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but I'm still curious for these details. What was he taking medicine, if any? What was that like? But just so I think there's so much to be discovered. And I think if Hunter starts to keep talking, we can learn a lot more and we can get those answers. But I also understand what's going on with Hunter Biden here. I think he's very angry. I think the Biden family is very angry. And I covered President Biden for a year. And I remember talking to a Trump campaign official on the campaign who was kind of worried that maybe poking fun at Joe Biden's age could eventually slip into this realm where people start seeing him as this old grandpa and they start to feel bad for grandpa and then they have sympathy for him. And I kind of started to feel that towards the end of my coverage because it was quite sad watching him deteriorate and not know where he was going and stumble through speeches, and that the fact that there were people around him who thought this was okay, who thought it was okay to keep running him for another term. And then we find out behind the scenes, according to Tapper and Thompson, that they're considering putting him in a wheelchair for the next 4 years because they don't think he can continue to walk. And so I understand that Hunter Biden is probably frustrated was sad seeing his dad deteriorate, and then also was sad to see friends turn against the party. I think it's a huge, messy situation. I don't know if there's an explicit right and wrong, but I think what we're seeing from Hunter Biden is really just frustration and anger over the whole way the 2024 campaign played out.
Well, I can talk about anger. I can talk about frustration. Come talk to those of us in my family who lived through being accused of colluding with Russia. By the way, we talked about this a few minutes ago, but there was the implications of this thing extended so much farther than just our family and my father-in-law. Liz probably remembers this. On the 2016 campaign, how many staffers had to lawyer up and go defend themselves, present themselves in front of Congress because they were being questioned about this. People went broke because they had to defend themselves from something that apparently Obama made up, that the chief intelligence officers of the Obama administration concocted and cooked up. It was all a lie from the beginning. But what about those people? What about the people whose lives were altered in really horrible ways? When do they get their apology and their life back. I mean, I always talk about, of course, the money we spent to investigate the Mueller investigation, but those people's lives were destroyed. And so we have been in my family accused of a lot of things. And now we're finding out, surprise, surprise, they're all fake. 2020, want to talk about being frustrated, Hunter, on the other side of an election? I got to tell you, I've never seen spikes of votes come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. I've never seen people carry suitcases full of ballots in and out of polling locations for some unknown reason. I've never seen a cat named Cody Timms vote in an election until 2020. All of that happened. So yeah, I get it. I get that Hunter is frustrated, but I think we all, Reagan, felt sad for Joe Biden in some cases, because it's tough to see somebody who is confused. It's frightening as an American citizen that was our commander in chief and our president. I'm grateful nothing worse happened during his term as president. And even that time frame between the 24 election and Donald Trump being inaugurated, I was terrified, honestly, that our adversaries might take advantage of that time, because Joe Biden's cognition was very clearly gone. But the people around him do bear responsibility. Hunter bears responsibility. Jill Biden bears responsibility, because those are the people who should have stepped in a long time ago and said, you know what? This is not working. This is not good for Joe. This is not good for the country. We've got to put our foot down and we have to step in. But it seems to a lot of us, looking from the outside in, that they were so power hungry and they wanted so badly to stay in that, White House and in that bubble, that they were willing to do anything they needed to just push them over the finish line, of course, until after that debate. Quickly to talk about Stephen Colbert. He's a big fan of mine. Just kidding. He's been absolutely terrible to me. Some of the things he said about me, I'll never forget, Stephen. Thank you for that. Democrats are melting down, though, Liz, about the fact that his show was canceled. They're trying to say it's some sort of a bribe or whatever it is. CBS is where his show is hosted. And don't forget what CBS did during the 2024 presidential campaign. They doctored up an interview that was a complete car crash interview of Kamala Harris's. They plugged in answers where she actually, for different questions that she gave. The whole thing was just a hodgepodge of them trying desperately to help her campaign. And then obviously, it still was bad, by the way. Even after they tried to fix it up, that interview was horrible. But that is not appropriate for anyone to be doing in the midst of a presidential campaign. So President Trump sued them. He won $16 million. And somehow Stephen Colbert is claiming that had something to do with his firing. What do you think, Liz? Is that why Stephen Colbert lost his job?
I don't even know anymore. I don't even care. I think it's so funny that for 10 years, anytime anyone had any problem, big or small, it was Donald Trump's fault. And now we're just going to continue saying that till the end of time. I don't care. Honestly, if he was that funny and people were watching, his show would not have been canceled. It's not that complicated. People don't care anymore. They don't watch liberal nonsense anymore because it doesn't work and it's not funny, and it's all about people who are obsessed with Donald Trump and his family and his supporters and making fun of them because it's the only thing that they think about. It's all they've thought about since 2015. I'm over it. I don't want to see their faces anymore. If they were funny, all of us would be watching, because us on the right actually have senses of humor and we don't care if they make fun of us or not. But they're not funny. They all lost their touch in 2015. They're too angry to do their jobs the way that they used to, and good riddance to every one of them. Learn how to be funny or lose your show.
Yeah, the number one late night host right now, Reagan, is Greg Gutfeld on Fox News. Because people, I agree with Liz, people are just tired of all of that. It's too much, it's so much. And apparently since 2018, ad revenue for Colbert's show has plummeted 40%. His ratings hit a peak in the 2017-2018 season, and they've sort of dwindled down since then. And they say that he's been losing somewhere around $40 million a year. You don't keep people around if they're not performing. And so as much as he wants this to be like he's some martyr, and he actually used that word, I think it was last night, about himself. He called himself a martyr. Is he serious? Does he really believe that? Reagan,
Most likely. What? Most likely. The 2024 campaign, I don't think it was just about Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. I do think it was legacy media versus new media. And this is a perfect example of the legacy media not being able to adapt to how the Americans are getting their news, and also what news Americans want. They don't want to be told they're bad people. They don't want to be force-fed this constantly negative talk about the president of the United States. And so what we've seen is that American people are turning towards podcasts. They're turning towards new media. They're not always clicking the dial on the TV to watch CBS, ABC, CNN. And largely what I've seen in the White House briefing room is that the mainstream media doesn't get that. And they're failing to make the adjustments in their content, in how they're reporting the news to cater to the American people. And so this, I think, is a perfect example of what the American people elected in 2024 on the media front. And, you know, Colbert can rectify this by trying to get into the new media maybe, or taking this as a learning lesson. But, you know, from what I've seen so far, they haven't learned their lesson at all.
They haven't. I know everybody's heard it, but I can't get enough of President Trump's response. This is what he says. I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings. I hear Jimmy Kimmel is next, has even less talent than Colbert. It's so funny. We are living in such an epic time that we have a president who posts stuff like that, who just like is coming out of the gate hot all the time. I love it. I think it's hilarious. Just to wrap up the show today, you know, this is something people were really talking about over the weekend. This Coldplay Kiss Cam couple, the CEO of Astronomy, which is a data company, and his HR department head, of course, caught on Kiss Cam when they are both married to other people and have a family, both of them separate from one another. And pretty clearly they realized in the moment they should not be there, Liz. This was the wrong thing to be doing, to be caught on Kiss Cam together, because the guy like dives down and she turns around, and it's a very awkward, uncomfortable thing to watch. Here's my question though. So over the weekend, I was with some friends and we were all talking about this. And it was interesting to get takes from different people on this. My take on this is that they both should be ashamed of themselves. And there's absolutely zero excuse for any of that behavior. And they deserved to be caught, and they deserved to be shamed. And if I were them, I would go in the witness protection program. I would change my identity. I would move out of the country, and I would never come back. Because I don't know how those two live another day outside of this. But with that said, Liz, let me get your take on this. Some of the gentlemen who were in our group over the weekend suggested that, you know, this is not as big a deal as perhaps I am making it and other people are making it. That maybe this guy just had a wife who he was like, they just weren't getting along and they weren't connected anymore. And this is what happens, you know, a wandering eye. What's your take on all this? Do you agree with that? Because I was kind of shocked by some of these guys and their perspective.
Are those guys married by any chance?
They are married. They're all married, by the way. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, my husband would be murdered and slaughtered and cut into little pieces. I don't know. I don't even understand. I don't know why you can't just cheat in private, like get a hotel room, like Bill Clinton used to do. Like, what are you doing? I don't know why it's in public. I don't get it. Shame on both of them. I feel horrible for, you know, their individual spouses, for their children. And yeah, I agree. I mean, we don't want them in America. I hope they leave America and never come back.
Reagan, you know, there's so much that whenever people do stuff like this, it's not just about them. To me, this is one of the most selfish things you can do, right? Because as Liz just said, you have a family. These people have children. These children are going to understand what happened. How is this all going to be for them to process? Think about their spouses, how embarrassing and what a horrible way. I mean, at least they know now. Maybe they wondered. At least they have the evidence of it now. But whenever things like this happen, I hope that people start to just take a beat. You know if what you're about to do is wrong. Those two knew exactly what they were doing and that it was wrong. And you can see by the reaction they both had when they were caught. But it impacts so many other people. And maybe this is a good time for people to think of that and learn a lesson via these two individuals.
Yeah, no, this isn't normal. And if it is normal, it shouldn't be normal. You know, just as a young person, and as I'm watching my friends around me start to get engaged and get married, and talking about what that means, and talking about it as a Christian, you kind of prepare for scenarios where, you know, you have to keep that spark alive for years and years to come in your marriage. And so I think this is just an incredibly sad scenario, and it's something that maybe America can use to take marriage more seriously, to dive into your faith, to have a good group of friends, by the way, who are going to support you in your marriage and lift you up and keep you accountable. And so I think this is just a cultural thing that a lot of people can learn from it. It's so sad, and my heart really breaks for the wife and for the family, and also for the husband of the woman that was with the man at this concert. It's an incredibly sad situation, and I hope I do believe the culture is shifting in America, where this is becoming frowned upon, and we saw pretty much everybody unite in the country and say, oh my gosh, this is horrific. And so that's a good indicator.
The one unifying thing are these two. I love that you said that, you know, you have to kind of think down the line and in the future, because look, I feel like in this country have perpetuated a culture of everything should be easy, a quick fix, lose weight fast, get an injection, don't worry about going to the gym no, everything that is worth it, you have to work for. And I would say the thing that is probably most worth it is your marriage. You know, to me, nothing is ever supposed to be perfect. You always have to put time and energy into things you care about. And if you don't put it into your marriage, then things are going to get hard. And there will always be hard times. But you have to prepare yourself for that. And you have to be willing to fight for it and work for it. And you have to go into it, I think, knowing that you're going to hit rocky times, that everybody does. That is just life. That's how it is. You all go through things that are different and that people may not know about from the outside. But this, I hope, is a good lesson for people, that, you know, you should really start thinking about your own relationships. And I think we're so knee-jerk in our society to just say, just get a divorce, just cut it off if it's not working. There's so much more to a relationship than just, you know, the couple. If you have a family, you have to think about that, and you should go into it knowing you're going to have to work hard for it. And I think that you talk to people who have been married for 40, 50, 60 years, and they will tell you that it is the greatest thing they ever did, that they're so happy that they stayed together, that there were always tough times, that there were times where one of them maybe thought about ending the marriage, but as long as that other partner was willing to work for it and they stayed together, they're so grateful to have that partnership, because there's really nothing like it, to spend your life with somebody and to share your life with that person and to have them by your side for all of the things that life throws at you. I think it's a great thing. So hopefully the lesson learned from the Kiss Cam couple at the Coldplay concert is we should just be working a little harder at our relationships. I would say that for marriage and just overall. We just cut things off too easily as far as I'm concerned in this society. But I digress. Reagan and Liz, thank you ladies so much for spending time with us and giving us your thoughts. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down.